We're about to start. I would like to welcome distinguished speakers. Thank you so much to the organizers of the event for this wonderful opportunity to discuss the actual questions on strategy, ESG, sustainable development strategy. Today, ESG, it's not just fashionable trend, but it is a long-term trend, and the response to the reality, especially with the worsening of the ecological situation and responsibility of business and climatic changes. And now in the world, more and more entrepreneurs and investors draw their attention to the benefit and income, but not only about that, and activities of their and the performance of their companies on ecology and environment. As we understand ESG, it is essential necessity and requirement. And today, during the panel session, we will discuss the questions regarding ESG transformation, business transformation. According to the decree of the head of the government to achieve the carbon neutrality up to 2060, and acceptance of which will allow Kazakhstan to realize the objective to achieve the carbon neutrality, net neutrality aspect. And Ministry of National Economy is a key authority who's in charge of this strategy. That is why I would like to give the floor to Minister of National Economy, Mr. Alibek Kuantyrov. Mr. Alibek, could you please tell us about the main ideas and statements of the strategy, please? Thank you. A good day, dear colleagues. Of course, the strategy is the product of accepted obligations adopted by Kazakhstan to achieve net neutrality, carbon neutrality up to 2060 in the world. We have different experience and this accepting the strategies up to 2050, 2060, more detailed, less detailed. And we have been working very tightly with our international partners inside the government, with other partners and stakeholders. And what's important that we were trying to absorb this best experience from all over the world. And in the beginning, we've started with more detailed plan, and we had this like that. The question basically is really complicated to achieve this net neutrality, carbon neutrality. None of the countries around the world can do this. That's why the horizon is for several decades. And the carbon neutrality, it does not mean the absolute lack of these emissions. That's the balance between emissions and neutralization of these emissions by means of some additional planting the trees who would absorb it, and etc. We don't know what kind of technologies we'll have in the future, in 5 years, in 20 years. So that's why this idea was added to our strategy, that in the future the correction of the strategy is possible by means of new technologies that are being designed at the moment and working on at the moment, something that we already have, something that will appear in the future and will be used in future. In general, we have several principles, basic principles of the balance, achieving the goals, involvement, and our main idea is that this aim, this target of net neutrality, this carbon neutrality, we will achieve step by step, taking into consideration the opinions of all stakeholders. If we move on straight ahead and just realize the strategy, implement the strategy the way it's been discussed in the beginning, from the point of view of ecology, that will be really, really difficult to do. From the economical point of view, we'll have to have this transformation and new energy types, like everything's going to be totally new, working on ecology issues and not taking into consideration some social aspects. And it is really sensitive question. The simplest question that SME will have and population will have: why do we need to pay more for the tariffs, and why do we need to transfer to this new technologies? Because Kazakhstan has resources. We have lots of coal for several hundreds years ahead of us. So we have oil and gas and etc. etc. But unfortunately, our old generation, in general, this energy generation, 70%, 69% depends on coal, and we will not be able just replace it right away at the moment, totally and completely. So the task is not like that. Some countries that promote total transfer, it's impossible because we should take into consideration our climatic aspects. There are some certain conditions and terms. First of all, is saving energy and energy storage and climate terms and conditions. And our climate, which is absolutely severe and continental during the year, the great shift of temperatures. Of course, we should take into consideration use our fossil fuels the way we are using it now, and plus social economical questions and the labor resources. If we take the coal industry, there are so many thousands of citizens of the country work there. Of course, we cannot just cut it out, this coal industry. Of course, the share of coal generation will be decreased, but we cannot get to total zero because it's workplaces, cities, mono cities that depend on coal mines. But the question is different, and there will be the natural process of mine employees being retired. That will be the natural process of changing the qualification. But we should remember that in future, and even now, we have some technologies that allow to use a coal generation with minimum or zero emissions, some captures and some filters. We understand it is super expensive, of course, and we understand that nowadays it's maybe not very efficient, but in the future we will get to that. During 10, 15 last years, how can we build in Kazakhstan to have wind turbines and wind power plants or solar power plants? It's impossible. We were thinking that we can see this docent that working with this wind turbines, and these power plants, plants, they appear, and with this geopolitical situation, current geopolitical situations, more and more European countries are interested in our region, in particular in Kazakhstan, since we are like the island of stability. The investment here, especially into energy sector, more and more investment comes here because of that. And there's companies, European companies and Chinese companies, our local companies, they're trying to invest into products of green energy. And in upcoming future, we will have the hydrogen power plant, which is more even advanced technology of the future. And of course, we're looking at the nuclear power plants and gas as the transit energy resource for this transfer, for this renewable sources. And of course, we shouldn't refuse those resources that we have, because natural resources that we have in our country, that is our competitive advantage. Of course, we shouldn't reject it and refuse it. It will be just simply silly, because that's the question, how we can use these resources. We should have this wise approach. And nuclear energy, it shows that, of course, it is high efficiency, and we just need to construct it in a correct way, high efficiency of gas generation and other resources. So what's important that it should be economically designed, and it should bring benefit and good income, and shouldn't be reflected that much on the tariffs. And for us, as Minister of National Economy and Government in general, that's the tariff as exchange to investment, and that was announced by the president. But again, it will be done very smoothly when the investment comes, and we need this investment for modernization on manufacturing processing. For example, power plants should go from coal generation to the gas, and the step-by-step replacement of turbines to gas, and again, this consecutive replacement. The old ones go away, the new ones come, and it should be done smoothly, not right away, but just partially, step by step. And we'll be working on that, of course. And we should do it correct way from the social point of view. And when we are talking with our international partners, international organizations, and we explain this, and we are trying to find the explanation that, of course, the situation is not stable, geopolitical situation is not stable, and sometimes in certain European countries, they unpack their coal mines, and they have to a little bit step back from this ESG principles, but then we'll get back to this. What's good that Kazakhstan, despite all these complicated times, Kazakhstan is easy to be reformed. We had lots of reforms during COVID epoch, and now lots of reforms were announced, and we're still moving on, even during these difficult times. So we are trying to get and to achieve our aims and goals. That is many years of efforts and hard work of the whole society. This is the result of what we have now. And this development of climate agenda, carbon neutrality, and we, of course, should go together, the whole society, and not just our country, because emissions, ecological issues, this question does not have geographical limits, and all these emissions will be reflected in other countries as well. So everybody should work together. Thank you. Yes, very interesting. And of course, it would be interesting and it would be silly from the side of the government not to use those resources that we have and just to have a reasonable approach. Thank you so much for your speech. And I think it was very useful to listen to the position of the government on behalf of your thoughts. Ministry of National Economy, one more question. That is the coordination authority on the sustainable development. What are the steps to, what is the progress that has been achieved? And of course, it's very interesting to see this governmental initiative. Does it have the support of the private sector and the society? Thank you so much for the question. Very good actual topic, basically. Of course, just today we were opening the forum at 9 o'clock, the SPEC forum of UNO. And this program includes all countries of Central Asia, plus Azerbaijan and Afghanistan. Afghanistan, unfortunately, does not participate, and we understand why. But this year, we host this forum, and one of the questions, of course, all this ESG and goals. And Kazakhstan has good position in this aim of promoting this 17 as ESG goals. And in this current time in New York, we've presented at the platform UNO the second voluntarily report on ESG goals. And 1 month ago in Almaty here, in this hall, we had the second regional summit of ESG goals. And why in Almaty? Because Kazakhstan is, among other countries of the region, has the most promoted and advanced position. So we set the example for other countries of the region. Moreover, I would like to emphasize that our experience on localization of ESG goals is being studied and learned and studied by other countries of the region, because we have taken this 17 goals and we haven't just included it in our system. Moreover, we have created our own indicators, 262 indicators that we have incorporated into the system at different levels, horizontally, vertically speaking, and they're fixed by means of central and local and regional authorities, ecology, gender development, sustainable development, funding, green financing, green bonds, and etc. And in general, today's forum is devoted to this business transformation, financing, and if we go through this green bonds, green obligations, it will be one of the most efficient tool. This market is just at the beginning of its way, but taking into consideration that we have certain center of green financing at the territory of AIFC, and more than a half of the companies working at KASE work according to the principles of ESG, and they provide ESG reporting, and we have even the proposals. We get the proposals to issue green bonds at the level of the government. So Ministry of Finance and their financial obligations, they want to use this new experience. They've started this pilot project. It's being perceived very well by means of green bonds and obligations, and under financial tools and instruments. With the development of the financial market of Kazakhstan, we'll be able to use actively to finance. These are those projects. Investment comes and great interest from the side of the investors. And these are those projects, and it is clear to understand that these investors will come with their money, and plus they will be looking for credit sources, and these green bonds will be an example of one of the directions. So that is why green bonds is one of the directions of ESG goals, and we use it very actively, as I've already said. ESG goals, and one more aspect. there was a question that why did it happen this way? It was at the level of ministry deputy. Now it is at the level of prime minister. So we just show to the society that we take this question really seriously. And I think that we should study somebody's experience. Somebody should learn our experience. And together with the society, population, business, with mass media, we should work together to achieve this ESG goals. It's not just about ecology, but sustainable development in general, gender balance, and etc. Mr. Alibek, thank you so much for your speech, for this work that's being done. It has great impact for the whole society, for business in general. And we're really happy that governmental authorities, on behalf of your visit here, provides this feedback. Distinguished colleagues, let's give a big hand of applause. Thank you. Thank you. And next, I would like to give the floor, and we expect interesting speech from about the activities of governmental authorities. Let's talk with business. ERG company, it's one of the leading companies, one differentiated company in sphere of extractions and processing of natural resources and representing 15 countries. And the high risks, ERG risks, are represented ecological threats and the decisions of the questions themselves. So the work of your company is about all these important questions. So moreover, I would like to draw your attention that ERG is in among 57 organizations, international organizations, that really encourage to make measures. And what does the company do to reduce the carbon footprint? And regarding the management of the company, about a commitment to ecological and social principles, and plus how do you do the integration of principles of ESG and system of management and reporting? We would like to answer these questions. The Executive Director of Corporate Finance of Eurasian Resource Group, Mr. Timur. Mr. Imashev, please, the floor is yours. Okay, let me answer your second question first about the management, company management, from the point of view of social and ecological principles. Last year, in April 2021, we have created a specific committee on ESG that is the subordinate to our top executive authority, not anybody else, but just to them. And the main task is to implement the sustainable development to long-term strategy and constant updating and upgrading in accordance with our corporate ESG strategy. And that is why we expect all the stakeholders in this process to participate. And under the guidelines of this Commission, ESG on Center on Decarbonization, strategic goals up to 2030, they're publicly available. And we have taken this voluntarily obligations with all these digital indicators about all ESG goals, almost all of them. Plus, the principles of ESG are in the basis of our business strategy short-term document. And long-term and short-term, by means of all business processes, we have this ESG planning. It's not that we just declare the commitment to these principles of sustainable development. We have implemented it into the system of decisions-making, this comprehensive ESG analysis. And when we analyze and we select this projects and processes, we base on the standard indicators, operational, what a simple traditional business looks at. But regarding each project, we calculate their carbon footprint and other ESG metrics. And it's clear that the decisions of business can be different. In particular, it's not the priority, 100% priority, but in each analysis all the time, in case of realization of the project, at least we take it into consideration. And that is, it has the systematic basis. And as a result of this integration of the ESG goals and of this ESG and business processes, that is our ecology strategy. That actually answers your first question, what steps do we have? In fact, the strategy is approved up to 2030, and the volume of investment within the framework of its strategy of investment projects, about 900,000 million tenge, and up to 40 projects, a little bit more, 40 plus. All of them follow the aims of sustainable development, and parameters are the following ones: that up to 2030, we plan to reduce CO2 emissions 2 million tons and 30%, and water consumption 1/3. And it's not just program document. Last year, we have finished some projects within the framework of the strategy, especially aluminium, Kazakhstan. We have improved the filters, reduced the emissions at some furnaces and hard solid particles, and the process will be going on. The first project was pilot, and we have considered that, yeah, it's truly the way it was supposed to be. 90%, these solid particles were reduced. The same work is being done on our main energy asset. We have reconstructed the fifth energy block, and we have reduced the greenhouse gases 300,000 tons. And a big comprehensive analysis of the Kazakhstan from the point of view of potential sun and solar and wind energy in order to have the pool. So the analysis has finished. The platforms are identified, and the capacity of this potential was identified as well, about 6 gigawatt. So it's pretty much ambitious, but up to 1 gigawatt we'll be able to achieve. And we've started realization of a wind park and Chromtau. It will be the first step in this line of these projects, in the whole series of which that we are realizing. And the last part of your question about the integration of principles of ESG into the principle of reporting and accounting, and our company has become the first one of the company that started to do reports on sustainable development. We issue these reports and publish them more than 30 years, and we improve it on a permanent basis according to the changeable requirements of the regulator and other stakeholders. Now we are getting ready for new disclosures, new requirements of Eurasian European Union on disclosure of non-financial data. Again, we will have to adapt it. Again, we'll have to transform. And of course, to organize this process, we have to work on the system, on data collection, on ESG aspects, and it was through all the divisions through all business processes of the company. And the longest time consuming and efforts consuming, it was within the framework of the process, integration. That is to have the system of feedback with the government, with employees, with creditors, rating agencies, scoring agencies, because everything that comes to ESG, that is about stakeholders, and it's not even about companies. And we always have to collaborate with them and to adapt somehow. Several years ago, when we send out reports on ESG to regulator or to creditors, and we were asking to look at them and to provide the feedback, sometimes we were looking that they relate to this to something that is not inefficient. What for do we need it? It's not sufficient. ERG has sent some document again. Look at it. Take a look. Yeah. But now, during these years, recent decades, the trend has changed. When the next report will be ready, can we organize these public discussions and help us? And the part of our creditors, they say, so we should help them to structure the system of preparing this report on sustainable development. So we have started several works bilateral way, but we want to combine, to unify the banks, taking into consideration our experience and their specificity. So all participants would do the work in the same way, because we do not have really general standards and everything keeps changing all the time. So in general, yeah, this is about permanent implementation of this ESG into the activities of the project. It's permanent transformation, improvement, adaptation, and adjustment. Short comment, if I may. The policy of the government is about this. Large companies, energy companies that have the largest scope of emissions, basically, working on natural resources, they should set an example. ERG has a good example, sets an example, perfect example, and the same policies in regards of large assets like Samruk Kazana. They have their own strategy of carbon neutrality. Such companies inside Samruk Kazana, Samruk Energo, KMG, they're working on these things too, and they set an example for SME and other companies. Thank you. Yes, totally agree. And we start the work on having this responsible chains, supply chains, and we ask our contractors, their subcontractors, and to have the whole system. So we want to calculate this carbon footprint comprehensively from the very beginning till the end, not just our part. Thank you so much. And as for me, all this scary words, ESG and other scary terminology, first of all, it's people, it's environment, it's our future. And when we have the correct relations to that and attitude, those companies that work in this sphere, what it is absolutely important. And I think that it has great impact and meaning for the society in general and its further development. There should be some flagman that sets an example, shows the path for others, and where we should move. And it's amazing that this collaboration with state authorities and with other business partners. Thank you, Mr. Timur. Thank you for your speech. Thank you so much. Dear participants of the conference, I would like to introduce the next speaker. That is our guest from another country, Mr. Mehmet Fatih Turker, who is the country manager of the world-leading companies, AVIS Kazakhstan. It is an international company that works on modern trend, it's fashionable trend, and I think it is the future, basically. So, Mr. Mehmet, could you please tell us about the strategy of the company on implementing the measures in correspondence to ESG? What are the intentions of the company in this direction? And what is the way to find the balance, new approaches that correspond to ESG and OPEX that, of course, are important for business? Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you for the nice introduction, first of all. And this is my almost 5th month in the country. And that I received a very good welcome, and like here as well. And it was really nice to be in Kazakhstan and know Kazakhstan culture and economy better. It's a great chance for me. So first of all, I would like to thank you all. And the second thing is, I would like to give first, maybe some of you is not very familiar with AVIS and what we are doing in here. Indeed, AVIS is not a very new company. It's even for Kazakhstan as well. It was established in 2014 in Kazakhstan. And before that, AVIS is renting cars and creating mobility since 1946. It's more than 7,000 years. And in Kazakhstan operations, we are a joint venture between Koç Group, who is the biggest company holding in Turkey, and with AVIS. So we are the market leader. We are creating, we are in mostly B2B business, and we are providing mobility solutions to most of the big companies in Kazakhstan. And we have been here for 8 years. And we are working with more than 90 corporates, and we are providing any kind of cars with no limits and with no models. And we got lots of partners among the Kazakhstan, and this ESG transformation is really important. And another thing, okay, so what about ESG? So AVIS, in 2029, we have a global target in transforming the business in both economical, social, and governmental sectors. As most of my colleagues represented, we have the clear targets for 2030, and this is really important for us to transform the business. To be honest, we are going a little behind in Kazakhstan, but I think in the next few years we will close this gap and catch up the global developments in AVIS world. So our main target today's discussion is about mostly green gas emissions. So our main target is to decrease this 30% in the next 10 years. And we are the strategy, if you need to talk, I would like to divide this strategy into 4. So the first step of the strategy is creating a system inside the company. But this system, what I believe, is not about creating numbers, because most of the time when we say decreasing the carbon emission for 30% does not mean a lot to us. So what we are creating, the system that we need to create inside the company should put some meanings into those numbers, because those numbers are not just decreasing 30% of carbon emission or just not, saving some kind of water. We need to explain inside and outside the company that these are not figures, these are not reports, or these are not daily acts, daily acts that we need to do, the tasks we need to follow. This is important. If we ask everyone in this room, if, for example, today, when you wake up, did you decide to make more harm to the world that we are living in? Individually, each one will say no. But in the collective manner, when we check the results, we are the generation who gives more harm to the world when we compare the generations before who came to the world. In the world history, we are altogether the generation giving more harm to any other generation before. So this decreasing 30% of emission means and this report shows that in the end of this century, most of us will not be able to breathe without a gas mask. Most of the world will not be able to bring clean water. So it's not about decreasing the emission. It's not about decreasing some kind of targets, some kind of reports. So the system we need to create in the company should reveal people what those numbers mean, why this is important. So we started with this and explaining these targets to you. I would like to say that these numbers are important because we would like to live in this planet, and we would like to, protect the nature, protect the environment for the posterity. And in AVIS, we are trying to do that. And as I'm a newcomer and I'm roaming around to Kazakhstan, and I can say that you have lots of things to protect. Yeah, so you have a great nature and everything. You got lots of water resources, and we got a lot to do here for the next generations of Kazakhstan. So the second thing is, knowing these targets are okay. The second thing in our four-stage strategy is knowing what to do. Knowing what to do is our main act. So we need those strategy into actions. In order to do that, we need to clear facts and figures. The first thing, so since we are a mobility company and we are working with cars, we decided to transform our fleet into electric cars. Okay, when we say electric transformation, business transformation, there can be lots of questions. So we are searching them globally. We are following acts, we are following researches. And at the end of the day, these electric cars usage, even in the countries who are producing their energy from car coal or something, so they can halve the carbon emission in the market. So electric transmission, even if the production is from car coal or ecological resources, we need to transform our fleet into electric cars. So this is the learning part. The third part is sharing what we know, because most of the people who are interested in does not know mobility, does not know cars, does not know how to do it. So, but in each company, they have great know-how. We have great know-how. And these kind of operations, these kind of connections, we would like to share what we know. So when we talk about electric cars, there are lots of questions. In order to answer these, we have great partners. We are doing also events to introduce electric cars, benefits and everything in the Kazakhstan. And we are trying to create an ecosystem around us to understand the transformation better, to know the difficulties in front of us, and to solve these problems altogether. So, for example, when you say electric cars with the lifetime circle, so for example, there are lots of things. When we will use electric cars, are those Leon batteries are also harmful to the economy? So yes, there are lots of questions, but there are also lots of researchers that there are different ways of using these batteries, they're using transformation, and there are also new sectors, new segments we can create in Kazakhstan to create more opportunities for the economy as well, while transforming this transportation. And the third stage is this sharing. Up to now, we always worked for the last 200 years, business life was about working, achieving individually. It was an individual mindset in the businesses. To be successful was meaning to beat the competitors and everything. But today, this mindset needs to change because what we have in front of us is a very complicated collective problem that we create collectively, and we need to solve this collectively. So the fourth stage of our strategies create an ecosystem mindset that we can discuss all these problems in front of us and share this. So for example, in last month, we made an e-tron event with Audi dealers, and we introduced lots of our customers there, and we saw that there's a great potential and demand. And most of the companies, maybe yours even, have lots of budget for this transformation. But they just don't know how to spend it and where to use it, and they don't have good partners to create long-term projects together. So we need the fourth stage is to create a collective mind to share all those information and to discuss this. This is our the transformation strategy, and we don't want to do it alone by AVIS because we are providing mobility and we are trying to create a good ecosystem around us to change this system. And what we believe is we would like to participate more into the economy, into other companies, and we would like to change this world altogether.
Большое спасибо.
Thank you so much, and especially for Almaty, it's a very interesting moment that you announced it. It is very interesting to listen to proposal to the companies that have been working for many years at the market, and especially it's very actual and interesting. Practical question to you: how do you solve the problems of impact of vehicles during the whole period of life cycle, utilization of components, especially accumulators, batteries, because this direction is actively developed at the end of the life cycle? And another moment that I would like to ask that what are the changes that the market could have the impact of the wide expansion of electromobile entering the market? What should you do in order to, or government needs to do, or business should do, or population, society, in order to use electromobiles more actively in Kazakhstan? Thank you. Could you please answer?
Of course. So for your first question, we really know less about the future of this electric mobility because lots of R&D is going on, to be frank. But on the other hand, there are very good opportunities in the future because first, there can be three alternatives for the future use of those electric batteries. The first is recycling. So this recycling also, we can recycle most of the components, chemical components used in electric batteries can be recycled. And this also, creates a good opportunity for new business lines in the economy, which can create lots of recruitment opportunities for lots of people as well. So when we are thinking about the future and problems, we should also see some opportunities in it as well. So this recycling is one thing. The second is secondary use. Okay, we can use those batteries for mobility for almost 15 years. And after 15 years, we say the battery is depleted. But this battery is depleted for mobility purposes. But after 15 years, we can still use those batteries in homes. We can use those, for example, for other purposes, in other sectors, for energy storage. For energy companies, this can be another creative way of storing energy, which is a very expensive way. And these batteries that we will use in the cars, maybe we'll transform into some ways of electric storage. Maybe we will be using it at homes instead of generators or something in the near future. And this will extend the battery life from 15 years what we are expecting to 30 years, maybe 40 years in front. And we need to understand that we need to utilize those batteries, and we need to create new ways of approach. And as our minister said, there are many new technologies are coming. We need to just stay open to all those new opportunities, all those new features, and we need to collaborate to find new alternatives for those problems ahead. The second thing is, what can government do to be? It's I don't think of course government has there are lots of regulatory openings in Kazakhstan when we compare it with some of the European countries and other countries in the world. But I don't think this something as business leaders, this is not something that we should sit and wait. Okay, of course, this will take some time for most of the countries, for most of the new economies to transform their regulations, and those are really complicated problems, and it's not easy to solve. So what we need to do is we need to come together with the government. We need to create some, as I said, ecosystems to discuss openly all those problems, and we need to exchange information, and we need to help them to make the right decisions for the future of the economy. This is what I believe. So, of course, what I would like to hear from the government in Kazakhstan is to be open to all those discussions, and to be open to make new decisions according to logic and business needs, and to create some platforms that we can discuss all those needs and requirements for the future, for at least. And this should be a long-term planning, might be like 5 years, 10 years, and 20 years, which is, this problem is really complicated, and we need to work together.
Большое вам спасибо, действительно очень интересно.
Thank you so much. It's interesting to listen to international experience in this direction. We'll be happy to cooperate with you at our market. Thank you so much, dear colleagues, distinguished guests. Thank you so much for your speech. And I would like to address our online guests. During the discussion, you can ask your questions. You can scan this QR code on your screen, and you can join our Telegram chat bot. Online participants can enter online chat bot. Those who watch us online can participate and ask questions. And at the end of the session, we will try to answer all your questions. The next aspect that I would like to draw your attention, that we'll have the questions that I would like to now voice. ESG during modern time, is it just a fashionable trend, or there is a real shift of the mindset of entrepreneurs towards the responsible business? You will have several options to answer, and you can vote. So entrepreneurs perceive ESG as modern trend, no deep understanding, and no need to change anything. B, it is, yes, a young trend, a very fashion trend, but it will lead to the shift. Modern entrepreneurs change their strategies in favor of sustainable development, sometimes losing this 1 minute benefit. And another option is that we need to have new generation of entrepreneurs in order approaches and business can be changed in favor of ESG. So, dear colleagues, you will be able to vote, I hope, and at the end of the session we'll be able to announce the results. So, dear colleagues, let's move on. The next question is to our disclosure of our topic. As we can see, that's the time when large business key players have great impact, and their contribution with gender inequality and climate change. And based on the international experience, large companies, we can observe that the millennials enter the market that have ecological orientation and the system of values and less aggressive business model. And I think we have experienced this, and it enters our life. They bring new ideas to the market, and eco-friendly products, ESG, business development strategy. Maybe without this kind of terminology, but we can experience and feel this mood. It's not something that the fashion requires, but that's the life position of millennials and their mindset. And moreover, the young generation will choose the workplace and will be oriented to those companies when they are responsible. They have responsible attitude. They're interested in the society development and protection of the environment. How should the potential employer correspond to these requirements? How should employee understand this? And in order to discuss this question, I would like to give the floor Ms. Asel, the representative of Kazakh-British Technical University. I would like to listen to your opinion and about the new terms and conditions. How should the educational curriculum should be changed for students, and what are the academic subjects should be implemented in KBTU, and that will help to have the sustainable development. Please, Asel, the floor is yours. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for this interesting question, and thank you so much that you have invited the representatives of the educational system here. Because if we take a consideration, we have lots of information about ESG, but it's just about companies, corporations, but it does not have any relation to the education. But I would like to mention that each university actually has its activity in three main directions. University, it's not just education, and of course it is science. And because of scientific researches and discoveries, so we can use the results, all these famous physics representatives. So of course it is educational process and the work with employers. When the new students come to us, we ask them, what do you know about ESG? The results that we get, first, that it is something with ecology, some green technologies. That's the first association. The next question, what can you do for ESG? And the answers are repetitive from year to year, and they say, well, these are the global questions, which means it should be solved at the level of the government or within the frameworks of large institutions. So youth, they do not see their impact, their contribution to realization of ESG. I'm saying about those young students that just enter the universities. When it comes to universities, then universities more or less, they work in these directions. The first direction, environmental, when it comes to environment, and especially actually for technical institutions, there is a scientific component, having the projects, writing different theses, scientific reports, and etc. Maybe not everybody knows that Kazakhstan-British Technical University, we have our patented methodology, patented in the US, bilateral solar panel creating. So why is it different to other solar panels that are available in the market? First of all, it by means of diffusional constraints, and it does not use toxic gases when we produce solar panels. And we use our studies, and it's created on the roof of our buildings. Some rooms are basically served by this battery. And if you walk in square in Astana, you can see our installation, this tree, but instead of branches and leaves, we have solar panels. And if you cross the square, you can see that, or you feel that you need to charge your electronic device, you can take a seat and charge it. So that is, again, implemented our third mission of university contribution into the society development. We have lots of information how international universities do this, but we wish to improve this number of contribution. And these criteria, we have different criteria, transparency of information, and of course open access, and of course no corruption. And each university really works more or less works with this. And how can we assess it? How can we evaluate it? We have world rating, top university scoring rating, and we know that the first 10 or first last 50, they are repetitive, they're just changing the places. But the same agency that's working on this rating of quality of academic excellence in universities, they have worked a new rating system that's called World Sustainability Rating, which takes into consideration the social sustainability and sustainability of environment in relation to the university. 700 universities participated in this rating. One of the criteria that we know, the quality of the university in traditional understanding, can be identified by the indicators of the employment. If students get their employment, that means those skills, competencies, and knowledges could be found in real companies. In new rating, speaking about employment, it sounds a little bit different. It is the contribution of the company where the graduate works, impact of this company on environment. And what does it mean? It means that this rating shows first if a graduate has chosen this company, he thinks that he can work there. And the second point, that not just at the age of 20, 25 years old, students study, but the continuation of education, the master's degrees, the leaders of these companies actually study, and what's the contribution from his side, the owners of the company, what could he do? Did he apply this knowledge, and it had a positive impact on the environment? And one of the metrics that is being done. Another interesting aspect, the student community. Of course, student life should be there, it leads to the development and improvement of students, but according to the new index, it shows that students, communities, and groups and organizations that correspond to ESG goals. The third indicator is investment of university into the goals of sustainable development. Another indicator is how university treats the employees and the impact on the environment, of course, all those emissions to atmosphere and the lack of negative impact. So what I wanted to emphasize, that top rating of world universities is familiar to us. And according to rating, those universities in top 10, they are not in top 10 anymore. So the first was MIT, according to the last, then it was Cambridge. According to new rating, it is a 39th and 19th place. So now even the rating scoring agencies, they start to change and restructure, and they draw the attention to the non-traditional aspects. And I looked at this rating, I was considering these reports. Unfortunately, no Kazakhstani universities, 5 universities of Russia are represented, and the top ones, of course, the US, Great Britain, Australia, a little bit of Asia. And the common rating, 400 participate, and maybe that's why only 700 universities participated. So if our universities start taking part, then we will see in real modes what will be the contribution of the university, and if they move the correct way in this direction, then I think it will be useful. And the first place, University of California, Berkeley. But this University of Berkeley is on the top of 32 if it is according to the top universities without this scoring. And there was a question about the educational programs. Yes, I absolutely agree with Mr. Kuantyrov, who has mentioned that just completely to use the renewable, it's impossible because we have our resources and the capacities are different. And the third, labor market, we talk a lot with employers. They're not ready to accept the great mass of students that will work in this direction. So we need to prepare such a graduate who will be the professional specialist in this sphere, but realizes and understands what are the problems that the society faces at the moment and what they should draw attention to. I would like to address the questions to those who are here and those who are online. You can ask your questions to the speakers. Online it will be easy. You can use the chat. You should mention the name and the question briefly. At the same time, general questions would be asked at the end of the session. Specific certain questions to the speaker, I can ask in online mode. Okay, dear colleagues, let's do it this way. Ms. Asel, thank you so much. It was a very interesting speech, and I would like to ask more questions. What are the projects with ESG agenda are being realized in KBTU, and what are the aspects that are really significant and important and applicable to your university? Thank you for the question. I've told you about one project, about other projects. Of course, it's working on new educational programs, new subjects, and new disciplines. In order to answer this question, we need to see what we get as a result. So, graduate, 5-6 years, for example, in future. The person who knows his major really well, has competencies and skills and knowledge, and that's the person who has the soft skills, and also it's impossible not to mention the third component, of course, digital skills. In 1918, more than 100 years ago, there was research of Harvard University when they've mentioned that 85% of success in the life of each person, it depends on soft skills, how they talk, how they communicate, and 15% on hard skills, according to his major. 100 years later, the list of soft skills is updated. Of course, here we add the careful production, ecological mindset, and now we have an idea that probably we don't need to have any certain program that will be called ESG management, but just each student will provide an opportunity to create the skills of critical thinking and understand what to do, add in new disciplines and activities, volunteer activities that we didn't have before, and students have an opportunity to have their real contribution into the development of this society. Another aspect, we should understand with whom we're working. As you've mentioned, millennials, but we also have the generation Z generation, so-called homelanders, and also we have another generation. In 10 years, it will be Alpha generation, those people that are absolutely advanced in digital technologies from early age. So that is why we change our focus. I mean, we change our programs. We try to reorient the idea of information provision so it will be understandable and affordable and accessible. We, as university, what we focus on, as we say that the theater starts from the wardrobe, but it means that the performance starts not when the curtains are open, but when you've just entered. So studying in university, it's not during the lectures, but when they walk around, when they communicate, they look at us, and we do not use business cards because we save the environment, to use less paper, and this waste sorting, the waste, and the students see that I can change the world too, and I can move in ESG direction, and they can notice that in future their impact will be significant in the future our planet. Thank you so much. And the last question that is very interesting for me, and in KBTU, how it is formed a social responsible business forum in regards of business and to the employees. Could you share? Very big question. Who are the main clients of students or the companies that take the product of this graduation? Of course, I think that it should be student-centered, student-oriented. This is our social responsibility. We listen to the student, and then when it comes to their applications, 150 scholarships are given to the gifted students that participate in different competitions. We have 5,000 students and 500, 600 applications to provide financial support to support in different conferences, and they see that we are open to them, and they have an opportunity to do what they can do. We had the guest lecture of the professor from Cambridge, and when they mentioned what's the difference in the infrastructure of top universities from others, myself, as of the leader of large lab, I can say to my employees, that's your workplace, that's your salary, and what to do and how to do, that's the question of your creativity, and you solve it by yourself. So they give the freedom to think. And we try to have this approach to teachers, to professors, because when they see the students, they actually translate this information to them from textbooks, and not just what they need to tell. They have this verbal, non-verbal information, and the support of the teachers, the faculty staff, the support of all employees if they need some kind of skills and learn additional languages. We have Italian, Turkish language, by the way, is represented, and we try to provide the support as much as we can. And by the way, speaking about social gender question, we have our rector and other members of management, women, 3-to-1. So we support gender equality. Thank you, Ms. Asel. The future is behind you. So the role of universities is critically important for our future. You actually build up our you prepare those people that will work in future economy of Kazakhstan. Thank you so much. Okay. Also, today we have Mr. Askar Sembin, advisor to the General Director for the Development of the Autonomous Cluster Fund, Park of Innovative Technologies. Again, very interesting activity you have. During last years, we have lots of news and publications on ESG, and it has become really obvious that social policy of inclusive economical growth and sustainable development, we need to have the competencies in accordance to the best practices and definitions around the world, with whom and how we can build in capacity. And this ESG agenda, how is it developing in Kazakhstan? It will be interesting to find it out. And the role of this fund in Kazakhstan, with a great pleasure, I would like to give the floor to Mr. Askar, so he will take the floor. Thank you so much, dear colleagues. Thank you that you have organized such an important event. And this Autonomous Cluster Fund, its main objective was the development of innovations. And about 8 years ago, we were considering, and Mr. Schwab, we have considered this Industry 4.0, that this approach for Kazakhstan is applicable. And was it possible? And there were different changes on digital transformation. And when we came up with this initiative that innovation should be focused on the question of digitalization, it will help us. And Schwab added really clearly all the risks were mentioned, that viruses will be there, and digitalization will help. And if we take a look at the moment, sometime later, we can see that those activities, proactive actions, helped us to be sustainable. And today, what we can participate in this online translation, and those entities during COVID time who could do this digitalization, they could work remotely, serve remotely, and I believe that in business transformation on ESG, some lessons can be learned. What we were doing, Kazakhstan is pretty much experienced player on some different transformations, and lots of changes happened, very flexible changes, very good collaborations and cooperation with business and with the science. We have great collaboration with them too. And I think that we need to work on the ecosystem. And speaking about Industry 4.0, what we've done, first of all, we focused on mining and oil and gas companies. For us, it was very important because 1% of soil users, legally speaking, there was an opportunity to realize it, but companies couldn't see it. It was the gap between the science and the industry, the production. When we've created the platform, everybody got easy access, possibility to realize and implement these projects, and among thousands of companies, we've got the plan that during 5 years we need to build in the capacity, some critical mass that later on, not the government, but private sector will be able to work. Ecosystem. So it's important to launch it. And the role of the government is to start this system. So when we talk about the economy, a circular economy, in terms of transformation, we need to orient in that, focus on that this system is supposed to support itself. And our proposal is this processes should be integrated into industrial processes. During a half a year, together with the Atameken expert group on mining sector development, we're working in this year, and the last strategy was 14 years ago. And nowadays, according to the Industry Institute of Fraser, in comparison to 24th spot among 90 countries in 2021, we dropped down 65th place. So it's in key industries, basically, as Mr. Kuantyrov has mentioned. This is the key sector, the driver, and in questions of diversification, there was some sort of disbalance. So we were not supposed to support it, and we do not have any strategical documents to regulate this industry, this sector, and it's not a national priority, which means some specific companies can be successful, but there is no systematic approach. And at the level of Atameken, we have the discussion, then we work on the industrial strategies. We need to integrate the question of sustainable development, the common strategic development, especially when it comes to the industry, some sectors, and to consider pilot projects so we can share these cases. I know that there are some projects, ERG has some projects in automated system of monitoring on the 1st of January. There will be some fines already, digital project, but the data that we will get, where it will be integrated, how we will exchange it, how can we share this case with other participants. And these systematic questions are on agenda of the day, and in our opinion, it will help to promote digitalization further. Well, digitalization, it is a process. We need to consider ESG metrics. Each organization has its own priority in social and ecological, and of course, Kazakhstan needs to understand that there is no universal pill for everything. And of course, we need to consider all these questions comprehensively, and we need to develop the idea of the project office to unify and according to the principle of this triple spiral, what we've realized in Industry 4.0, maybe it can be realized in ESG. There should be the dialogue between the government, business, science, and to add the fourth element, social. It's necessary to consider in this aspect too. This year we had AMM event, and we were talking about artificial intelligence, blockchain, digital clones, but that's the idea of using the rational usage of these sources. And the topic itself of the speeches, such companies, Almas and Polymetal, it was clearly devoted to ESG. What are the specific ideas of transformation of this contract obligations and social aspect to integrate into the tax payment? And I think it's really important to listen to business. Business should be consolidated, and we have everything that we need. Looking at the previous Russian experience, the industry, the technical industry, they're outsiders, but the most active key players are the mining companies, and that is our national feature. And the companies, they do not refuse; they can do it, and they're ready to do it. These are the drivers that we can use as the foundation. Then together we were creating the centers of competency, and we had the Council on Technical Policy headed by the Prime Minister, and we have identified 3 priority directions, among which we have the green tech. And such initiatives should be supported by the business and by the community. Plus, government has clear position on development of this direction, including the president, his position, and what was mentioned about the directions. Of course, nowadays it will be possible to consider opportunity the pilot projects on lithium and others, but again, it should be economical efficiency. There should be some centers of competency. There should be the center of excellency on exchange of the best practices among the participants of the market. And systematically structure the work. It is possible to do, and it can be done really quickly because everybody has this experience. And in the government, They realized this project approach, and 10th meeting of Atameken was supported this project approach. So you have one KPI, attracting the investment to the sector. Then you have sub-KPIs, and then this association, they will understand how to join and how to attract other small stakeholders. Then we'll have this measurable indicators of our transformation. We will have the deadlines, and we will get responsibility. And this word, responsibility, that is in the basis of ESG. You need to feel the responsibility, understanding that your step depends on others, and the goals, ESG, it's about consolidation around other values. And these values, that's the sustainability. So that is why I think that today's discussion is very important, and our idea, our proposal is to use the whole spectrum and accumulated experience and to transform it according to these directions. Thank you, Mr. Askar, for this part. But we haven't finished at this point. I would like to ask more questions. Do we need the industrial programs for sustainable development? Do we need to have a best cases exchange among the companies, and how it can be realized? Can I listen to your opinion? Well, in fact, as I already mentioned, I think that industrial programs are essential because ESG, it is framework. It's too common for everyone. There is a proposal, an idea to consider within the frameworks of new strategy of development the possibility of sustainable development as component. It will be very important because in the market, it's not just 2-3 large companies. It's more than 2,000 companies nowadays in the sector where we work, including SME. And when it comes to the center of competencies and creating the project offices, we should attract offices. We do not have active key players, big four, at the panel session who have great experience on methodology, but I think this methodology should be given to universities, basically, shared, and it should be worked on more detailed methodology, R&D decisions. We should include these, and in general, to realize this transformation. Speaking about calculations, we're talking about technical modernization. When our international colleague has mentioned already now, any new technologies are more energy efficiency, they're modern, they're more open, and of course, we need to understand clearly on localization the green technologies, what competencies do we need to have? And the question of collaboration of government, business universities, and their reporting and its transparency in front of the community, these are the key indicators of success. But in order to get this, we need to prepare the normal, adequate proposal and to go to the government and to work on this and to work with ministries and to report on the results, including economical. Then it will work. Everything that is profitable, it will work. If it's not, then it will be just fashion, and it will die someday. So thank you so much, Mr. Askar. Let's continue together in a collaborative mode. Yes, National Chamber of Entrepreneurs is always ready to help and to be the platform for the discussions of this question from the side of business, society, and community, the same as any stakeholders, experts, and enthusiasts from this sphere. Thank you so much. Colleagues, the main part is over of today's session. We have Q&A session now. And we have just about 15 minutes, and by 1 o'clock we will have the results of the poll. So, dear colleagues, our questions. I probably will have the priorities about the questions that were prepared in advance and those questions that we got online. Brief questions will be announced, okay, because we wouldn't have enough time to answer long questions. So, Arman Asakayev, do you think that ESG norms increasing for the industry with retail, it will lead to the scaling up and monopoly in the sector? Who can answer this question? Can you read it again, please? Do you think that increasing ESG norms and tariffs on the legal basis with the industry with retail market, it will lead to the scaling up and monopolization of the sectors? Well, we're not the industry with the retail market, of course, but we can see that these ESG standards, sooner or later, by means of different legal requirements, it will be increased anyway, and it will grow. So the process of restricting the standards and requirements, that's inevitable. And if it leads to monopoly or not, that's the question to how efficient the governmental system functions. If it allows it to happen, then or not. The common trend, yes, it will be restricting. Of course, I think I will add that there is always some sort of risk of restriction of regulating. And earlier in 19th century, it was considered during technological revolution, it was considered that new technologies, industrial revolution, it will destroy the workplaces, but actually it happened different way. Vice versa, the new workplaces appeared. The priority of the government to develop SME, and we see it as the basis and foundation for forming the middle class of the population, and that's the priority, certainly, and the government from its part will take a look where to regulate, where to control. New technologies appear, of course, GPS and others, but SME itself, they have this transformational voluntary basis. I think if even some kind of integration happens, some merging, largening, scaling up, it should be like a natural process. We're interested, biker business should be small, small would be middle, and middle should be large. So I think it will be natural processes, but some changes will be regulated by means of anti-monopoly tools. Thank you. And there is another question. Will be some certain directions in development of industries by means of projects and startups in this park of innovational park? The question to Askar. Good question. We've launched the program Startup Kazakhstan at the platform of KBTU. Before Expo, we had first ecological projects, but unfortunately, Kazakhstan legislation was not really ready in regards to give the terminology in jurisdiction, startup, how it can be developed. And I think that today we can talk and we can say about an opportunity to form in coalition with universities to prepare a good program of acceleration and incubation, and it should be done with the support of large companies and business according to their needs. And if ERG has the necessity and needs and demand by means of these marathons and open platforms, we can see how crowdsourcing works in regards of this or that. Of course, it will not be ready for the enterprises because for entities, they cannot risk by the productional cycle, but there are some digital clones and that KBTU at that time they had this energy efficient block study, and they had the special division. We need to create these platforms and look at new possibilities and opportunities. It's not a secret that today Kazakhstan, with the difference of this geopolitical situation, that we have good chance even here to attract to Almaty, to attract the companies, to have the relocation, to give an opportunity of the second breath for the most advanced players here, now and here. To realize these projects, it can be one of the elements to prepare the strategical documents. So we work on this program and focus our directions on sustainable development. And I think it will give another way and opportunity for markets. And speaking about finances, crowdsourcing and crowdfunding, they go hand in hand. And today we have several panel discussions when they discuss about the green bonds issue. But understand, for a startup, you need to have venture capital, and you need to create several capital ESG funds that will allow finance the projects at the early stage. And this comprehensive approach of programs will allow, in this case, without any problem, systematically integrate the interests of companies in SME sphere in cooperation with a large one, according to this ESG agenda. And it is great merger factor, and they have good metrics and standards, and it can be used as a guidelines how to work. And a good opportunity, and this opportunity should be used. Yes, thank you. Mr. Alibek, there is a question to you. Should private sector get the database of best cases on ESG implementation, for example, financial organizations, production, logistics, education, on the publicly available website, and to place the documents there in Russian and Kazakh language? I think it is possible, and that is why we cooperate with our international partners, with organizations, with OECD, where we plan to enter, with the Asian Development Bank, with World Bank, with UNO. The best practices, they collect those best practices. We always communicate with them, and I think the representatives of these agencies, of course, they can publish this, and probably the general report can be prepared under the coordination of the government. I think it is possible. Good idea. Thank you. And another interesting question, curiosity for everyone: when the strategy on carbon neutrality will be proved? We plan to finish it till the end of the year. The main approaches were presented in Sharm el-Sheikh, and the strategy was discussed in details by all the stakeholders, with publicity, with experts, local experts, and soon it will be formalized and represented. And I don't know whom to address, but probably the question is why the impact of ESG transformation does not have a specific ministry, and without actually relating a very specific question. Like, so far as I know, it comes to the Ministry of National Economy as the key operator here. Well, I think that as coordinator mostly, because we designed the strategy taking into consideration economical trends, and I think it is in regards of the government in general and the society. And ESG, as you've mentioned, it is such a framework, and in regards of everything, and business in particular, investment, and we show it somewhere different documents, and there is a specific direction, ESG, and carbon neutrality strategy, and it is like the red line through the strategic documents such as National Plan 2025 and the aims and our goals of sustainable development. It goes through the whole economy and social questions, and we don't need to have this certain document. This ESG agenda, it's right in the air almost. It's our topic today, and then in another hall, they are discussing the same topic in parallel. So it should be, it should change our mentality and our approach, and it will just show up in all documents. I think there is no need to have it formalized as certain document, separate document. Another question is, what kind of skills do the managers and politicians need in order to have this transformation of this? Who can answer the specific questions? I think that we need to know the principles of ESG, first of all, and other skills that are essential, all those skills that are essential in case of any transformation. Facilitation, because ESG involves different processes, and the skills on changes management, because we need to have the process of permanent feedback with everybody, with all the participants of the process out of the company. That's all. I don't think that we need anything else. And another practical question, what are the key problems can appear in the company during ESG transformation? As the key problem, I would say that part of the requirements that come from ESG transformation, it can lead to the total change of business model of the company. And we need to be ready. And shareholders and management should be ready. They just specifically shift, a tremendous shift of the focus. Yes, colleagues, general question. The question that we have basically asked online, and we would like to hear your opinion. Is it a fashionable trend, or it is just deeper changes of thinking of the companies by means of paradigm of sustainable development, and that the mission of values and vision and mission of the company, what can be changed? Who can say what?
In my opinion, I can answer this. So, when something is new for the world, it's always thought to be fashionable. So, maybe 20 years ago, technological transformation seemed to be fashionable. But in 20 years, most of the biggest companies in the world 500 has changed. So today, some people may be thinking that ESG is some kind of fashionable thing, but in my opinion, this will affect our future, and most of this transformation will lead most of big companies to be, disappear, and some new business lines and opportunities will appear. So this is some kind of technology transformation, or like other transformations we have experienced before. I think this will affect our life in the near future, and I don't think this is fashionable.
Thanks.
Yes, and probably it is taken and perceived as a fashionable trend for our foreign investors when they work with us, international financial organizations. They say, we will work with you if you have this, and ESG in particular. And we, as for example, compact economy comparing to American investors, Europeans, of course, we have to adapt. So, and that is, you have no choice. So it is not fashionable trend. That's the reality. And future, it will be perceived as it just must be. I would divide it, I think. When it comes to renewable sources of energy and all those fashionable things, of course, it's just perceived as a fashionable trend. But ESG, their social part, and we have faced it 20 years ago. It's not that just non-fashionable trend. It is necessity, life need. Our mono cities and the cities where we are, we can see the brain drain, and we have faced it already. We didn't know that it was ESG, but we actually started working in this direction, that employees should have good conditions, good city, that the employee should have the places for entertainment where children could go, how to develop his children, and to create this user-friendly environment for employees. We've started doing it a long time ago to decrease the trauma level and injuries and harm, to take care of health, and to contribute there, to invest there. And that part of ESG, it was a long time ago, especially for mining, for extraction companies, for those companies that do not work in big cities but in small towns. And that's the necessity for them to do everything, because the mobility of people is really high, and it becomes even higher year after year. And if you do not create in some Chromtau or Aksu, if you do not create swimming pool where you can take your child, park where you can walk, and some medical examination institution where you can basically find the problem, so you will have no people. You have to do this. But of course, if you cannot stop it, then you can just head it. And we've started doing it a long time ago. During the last 13 years, more than 10 billion we've invested in this part of ESG, and we continue investing, and every year it keeps going on and on and on. So it's important with such companies like yours really takes part actively in this direction. And I would like to probably announce this question or idea from Gulnur to Asel. After graduating the university, maybe to implement testing, taking the test on understanding ESG, and to mention rating of this graduate on the ESG sphere, and then among employers to have additional payment to the student with a high level of ESG, how to use ESG in their work and to create products and services. Well, thank you for such interesting comment, because I think that students wouldn't be happy about additional exams, of course, but ESG, it is a wide term, how to measure this social contribution. And now we're talking that we have this pilot project going on, how to assess the students, not just what they got for their subjects, but we have such an indicator which shows how socially active he was during the process of education. and that's social. Speaking about the projects, in each project we try to draw attention to some aspects when they describe the actuality when it is connected to ESG trends and the trend fashion or not fashion, fashionable or not fashionable. Maybe, yes, there is a trend because some companies are trying to move this direction, the shares grow and the ESG investments happen. We know about it, but again, globalization, availability of the information, people change, they start thinking, realize, and they start changing something. And I think it's not fashion. That's the time, that's the generation that we have, not just in Kazakhstan, but all over the world, because information is available. They start think about it, reflecting on that, and then in future it will be just developing. So that's the whole movement, probably. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Asil. Okay, distinguished colleagues, so we're about to finish our session. It is 1 o'clock. And at the end, I would like to see the results of the poll. So the results should be demonstrated on the screen. And I would like to have one question about fashion or not fashionable. Is it reality or fashion? Just in the beginning of the session, we refused using the business cards on plastic, on paper, and Asil and I, we came with QRs and in order to exchange our data. And I think it is very important that we need to start from ourselves, to save somewhere, to be more attentive, to be more careful. And if we don't start from ourselves to be more careful to everything, then nothing will be changed. And I think that this trend should be like a habit for people, to be careful, to have this safe attitude to the environment and to respect others, that resources are limited. And only after that, the changes will come. Absolutely correct. And I was ashamed to have so many papers in my hands, but I will use it somehow. So, colleagues, what about information? Can we share the screen? Okay, let's wait a minute. Okay, so, dear colleagues, dear participants of the panel discussion ESG business transformation, what do you think? Present time ESG in business is perceived more like a fashionable trend, or it happens like a real shift? So based on our survey about this shift in mindset of entrepreneurs in favor of responsibility of business attitudes, so the majority was given to the position B. Yes, it is fashionable trend, but step by step, it will lead to the shift of the more conscious business. The list is that modern entrepreneurs change their strategies and in favor of achieving sustainable development. Well, of course, we should be open and we should understand, yes, of course, it is like that, but it's not everywhere that it happens just this way, that business environment considers it this way. As you can see, we suppose that this is the real proportion of opinions in Kazakhstan, and we still have where to go, where to grow. And at the end, thank you so much to organizers and resume of our session. Sustainable development in ESG values, that's truly the trend that cannot be ignored. That's the fact. And we can see that the interest grows, that if the company follows these principles of ESG or not. And this interest is not just from the side of the government, but investors, financial institutions, and simple consumers and high-qualified employees. I would say even more, high-qualified employee would be really attentive to this question, especially in social responsibility in business and just in human relations. Of course, the driver at this stage is the large business. But in upcoming future, we think that the ESG will cover all sectors of economy because we have to live together. It will be our environment, and it is really important, extremely important for our common future. We need to live in our country here together. So, dear guests, dear colleagues, thank you so much for your interest of this session. Thank you so much to the speakers. Thank you so much. And to the participants interested in fruitful discussions, thank you so much to everybody.